that were involved. As for Ian Stewart, he will be sentenced here tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
Richard, thank you. A review into the death of an 18-month-old girl at the hands of her legal guardians found multiple faults in the authorities who were supposed to protect her. Cheyenne Downer died just 9 months after she was handed over to Candice Downer, according to the Special Case Review. After that, the authorities had little or no idea what became of her. There were no health visits and no care professionals or social workers even saw her. Nick Wallace has the chilling details.
A beautiful little girl who died at the hands of her legal guardian, chosen by Birmingham City Council. Born to a drug addict and absent father, Cheyenne had a loving start in foster care before being given to Candice Downer, who renamed her Keegan and over 9 months tortured and killed her. Today's report into how Cheyenne was put into Candice Downer's care is blunt. It should never have happened.
That placement needed a much more thorough assessment, and it needed the professionals whose job it is to challenge and champion on behalf of the child needed to do a better job of it.
The review also found assessments of Candice Downer's suitability to bring up Cheyenne were flawed, incomplete and superficial. The lack of visits once Cheyenne had been handed over to Candice Downer made her invisible to those who might have been able to save her. But it also concluded that Cheyenne's death could not have been predicted, as Candice Downer had no known history of violence. 3 years ago, Birmingham City Council's children's services were branded a national disgrace by the official regulator. Cheyenne was killed less than 2 years ago. Has anything changed?
We should have been there questioning on behalf of Cheyenne. And that's what we need really good social workers to be doing all the time in Birmingham. We're on our way with that. The changes we've made were overseen as part of the Ofsted inspection, and we've shown some areas of improvement. But we've got more to do to get to that kind of process.
Candice Downer was allowed to become a guardian of Cheyenne because of a lack of scrutiny and the failure of various agencies to communicate effectively. This little girl was abandoned to the person who murdered her. The protection of vulnerable children in Birmingham is still rated inadequate. Nick Wallace, ITV News.
And our correspondent Ben Chapman joins me live now from Birmingham. Ben, this is not the first time that city has had tragic cases like this. Are there any signs of improvement?
Well, what struck me about the report was the familiarity of some of the language. Things we've heard before, problems with information sharing, failures to challenge assumptions, lessons to be learned. Now, the council says in this case, it was 2 years ago, lessons have been learned. Procedures have been transformed. National guidance has changed too. But the deaths of Kyra Ishak and Keanu Williams and others here still cast a long shadow. And I question the council as to whether people might believe that all over again. They're quite candid about the fact they're still rated inadequate. They say things are slowly but surely getting better, but they have a long way to go. Talk to social workers and they'll tell you that problems with caseloads, issues to do with recruitment and retention are still there, not just here but elsewhere as well, and that makes the possibility of potentially tragic mistakes more likely.
Ben, thank you. The former Prime Minister Tony Blair's wade into a row over why a British man who was detained at Guantanamo Bay was not considered a security risk and was allowed to travel to fight with so-called Islamic State. Abu Zakaria al-Britani, who detonated a car bomb in Syria earlier this week, was released from US detention camp in 2004 and successfully claimed £1 million in compensation here after lobbying the British government. Well, our political correspondent Carl Dinnan joins me live now from Westminster. Carl, why has Mr Blair chosen to get so heavily involved?
Well, it would seem he's woken up, Alistair, and read the Daily Mail, which I'm sure Tony Blair wakes up every day and gets angry when he reads the Daily Mail. But today in particular is talking about this man also known as Ronald Fiddler, who came back from Guantanamo Bay after lobbying, says the Daily Mail, from Tony Blair's government. The man was paid £1 million by the taxpayer and then ended up going apparently to join IS in Syria, where he blew himself up. Now, the Daily Mail is cross that he was allowed to do this, but Tony Blair said that the man was released following a parliamentary and massive media campaign led by the Daily Mail the very paper that is now supposedly so outraged at his release. And Mr. Blair says that he doesn't normally comment on daily stories in the press, but on this occasion he will do so given the utter hypocrisy with which he says the story is being covered.
And going back to that front page as well, why so much money?
Well, this is the interesting thing. Now, this man was brought back from Guantanamo Bay, but the British authorities only had intelligence on him and didn't want that intelligence to be dragged through the courts when this man decided to sue. And a few moments ago, Jack Straw, who was the Secretary of State responsible at the time of the Blair government, told me this about how the process had been handled.
It could have been that I would have made the same decision, but as a matter of record, it was made by the Conservatives. The problem that both governments faced at the time was that there was no way safely of bringing out in court the intelligence evidence we had against these individuals. The law has now been changed.
So the point about the money is that the government didn't feel that it could go to court, so it had to give him the money to make the court case go away. The issue about how this man, who may have been a threat, was allowed to go to Syria is a different issue, and one which still demands answers.
Carl, thank you. The bosses of Deliveroo, Amazon, Uber and Hermes arrived in Parliament today and called for changes in the law that helps their drivers. They've faced criticism for the way that they treat and pay their workers, but today one of the bosses warned that thousands of jobs will go if she has to employ her couriers as staff. Well, our business editor Joel Hills joins me live in the studio. They were in a pretty bullish mood.
Yeah, they were. I mean, look, these companies have tens of thousands of people working for them, many of them full-time. Many of them don't get the same sort of jobs, protections, benefits that people in normal full-time work do. Things like sick pay, minimum wage guarantees, holiday pay and so forth. But the UK boss of Deliveroo this morning said that actually his company would be keen on paying more benefits to its riders. The thing that is preventing them is the law.
And we're restricted from providing some of the benefits that we would as a business like to provide. That, as we go through the next few months, is hopefully something that the government will consider looking at, and there may be legislation.
Well, the government is looking at this, Alistair. It's asked Matthew Taylor to look at an inquiry into self-employment. Meanwhile, the unions are taking a lot of these legal action against a lot of these companies. This is quite an emotive issue. This morning, in fact, at a business travel show in London, a group of Uber drivers have gate-crashed the company's stand, chanting slogans like corporate travel shouldn't use slave labour. Last October, an employment tribunal established that these drivers have employment rights, they want them, but the chief executive of Hermes was making the point, look, if you force us to employ all of the people that we currently use as contractors, then thousands of jobs will vanish.
We would substantially change the nature of the operating model, so I think instead of having 15,000 couriers, it might be more like 6,000 full-time drivers.
These companies, Alice, have had enormous success and they've pushed the law right to breaking point. Either the law has to change or these companies are likely to be forced to change the way they do business.
Who blinks first? Joel, thank you. Still to come, the best in class, why this teacher is in line for a global award. And the dresses that help make a princess, the new celebration of Diana's greatest gowns. But first, the Duchess of Cornwall, Jamie Oliver, and the widower of murdered MP Jo Cox have joined forces this lunchtime to launch the Great Get-Together. To mark the one-year anniversary since Jo Cox was murdered, thousands of street parties, picnics and bake-offs are to be held around the country this summer, aimed to bring communities closer together. Helena Carter has the details.
Sometimes it's the little things in life that make the biggest difference. Something as simple as baking a cake and enjoying lunch together. And this is exactly what Jo Cox's family are organising to mark the first anniversary of her death. The great get-together will take place in June, a chance for neighbours to come together for parties, picnics and a good old-fashioned street party.
What we were thinking about is how do we remember Jo in a way that reflected who she was. She was full of energy, full of vitality, full of love. So we didn't want just to have minutes of silence. What we wanted to do was to think about an event that brought people together, that was fun to be involved in.
A celebration against the backdrop of last June's horror, when Labour MP Jo was shot and stabbed to death. But instead of dividing communities, the family are determined it will bring people together. With the backing of royalty and Jamie Oliver, and in partnership with the annual Big Lunch organisers, they're hoping at least 10 million people will take part.
For us to bring the Big Lunch to the party, to underpin with the Jo Cox Foundation the great get-together is truly immense. I can't think of any more words. I think it is truly a really, really special moment.
Already communities are coming together to discuss their plans for the anniversary.
Me and Jo were brought up to care about people, and so much of what Jo did previously to her career in politics and as part of her career in politics was centred around people and fundamentally helping people and bringing people together. And she loved a party, and she loved, just seeing people have a good time. So the great get-together embodies Jo's spirit very much.
The event's message is in its name, that we are better and greater together. Helena Carter, ITV News.
The Supreme Court has rejected an appeal by families that the government's minimum income migration requirement breaches their human right to a family life. The rules currently stop thousands of British citizens from bringing their foreign spouses to the UK. Since 2012, Britons must earn more than a minimum £18,600 before they can apply for their partner to join them from overseas. Police have found the car used to help a convicted murderer escape from police custody. Sean Walmsley was serving a life sentence, but escaped while attending a hospital appointment in Liverpool after two armed men confronted the prison officers guarding him. A teacher from Northamptonshire has been named as one of the best in the world. Raymond Chambers doesn't teach English, he teaches maths, which is a huge relief. Teaches computer science, in fact, at Corby, and has made it down to the final 10 in the prestigious global competition with $1 million prize for the winner. And I'm delighted to say that he joins me now. I apologise profusely for that. What were the criteria for this?
Can I just start quickly by thanking the ruler of Dubai, Sheikh Mohammed, and Sunny Varki for actually the idea of the prize, because it's just been amazing. But
do you teach marketing as well?
Maybe. No, I think the criteria for the prize, I think they were looking for lots of different things, maybe like innovation, people who try different things, and I think that's important to have in the classroom.
And what would you highlight, particularly at what you do? You teach, as I say, computer science to people aged 11 to 18 in Corby. What would you say was your standout device, methodology, trick?
I like to use technology and try a number of different things. So I might use Minecraft to teach them about logic gates, or I might do games like Pass the Parcel to do questions with them.
And do you tend, we're just seeing pictures of this chap, hand in head, you've just given him something. Do you tend to follow them as well? I mean, my daughter is a teacher as well, and always maintains that you learn as much from them as you are trying to teach them.
Oh, completely. And I think the student voice is one of the most important tools in your toolbox, because at the end of the day, if they're finding something engaging, you know they're switched on and they're learning from it. But if they seem disengaged, talk to them, find out what they want to make the lesson more fun, and they're going to get more from it. Yeah.
And you go to Dubai on the 15th of March. And,
yes.
And then it's a bit of a conference as well, with fingers crossed for 4 days until you're either announced or not.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the forum, just for networking and talking to other teachers. I think it's important to learn from each other. There might be one teacher that does something differently in the class that I could try, or they might like something that I do that they could try, and it's good to learn from each other. And then it is the bonus at the end, obviously, of the ceremony. So, yeah, it's been great so far. So,
well, we wish you all the luck in the world, and if you win, come back and tell us about it.
Thank you very much.
Good to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
And finally, Princess Diana's charisma and style garnered attention from around the world and shook up the traditions of the royal family. She was more likely to be on the front cover of Vogue than in the pages of Horse and Hound. Now, some of her most iconic outfits are going on display at Kensington Palace. Sejal Carrier is there for us. Sejal, this isn't really just about the dresses, it's really about the stories behind them. What have you discovered?
Yes, Alistair, that's right. I mean, this collection really features Princess Diana's most famous gowns and celebrates her life through those dresses that so many of us remember. The exhibition marks the 20th anniversary of her death and features 25 dresses. We can find out more from Ellery Lynn, who is the curator of this exhibition. Ellery, we're standing in front of this velvet gown. It's one of the highlights. Why is that?
Well, you're right, it's a very iconic gown. The Princess wore it on a state visit to the White House in 1985 when she very famously danced with John Travolta for almost half an hour twirling around the floor. It's the perfect meeting of Hollywood and royalty.
Now, these dresses also tell us quite a lot about Princess Diana and her story at the time, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the surprising things for me was that when we meet Lady Diana Spencer in this exhibition, how very few clothes she had, how very little experience she had of high fashion. She had to learn very quickly. And although she never liked to be known as a clothes horse, she learnt very quickly to use fashion to help her do the job at hand, whether as patron of the arts, humanitarian, or as a working princess.
Did she have a favourite?
She had a number of favourites that are featured in this exhibition, dresses that she wore on more than one occasion.
So if you were to pick your favourite, which one would it be?
Oh, it depends on the day. It changes from day to day. I think she never looked more radiant, perhaps, than in this dress, the Elvis dress we're standing in front of.
That's lovely, Ellery Lynn. Thank you very much indeed. And the exhibition opens to the public on Friday.
Sejal, thanks very much indeed. Indeed it does, and to see all of the outfits on display at the Kensington Palace exhibition and the memorable occasions Princess Diana wore them, just head to our website, itv.com/news. That is it. We're back at 6:30. Until then, a very good afternoon to you. Bye-bye.